Yo, peace and blessings, family. Family, I just want to kind of like speak on what are we calling the so-called Black American versus African. Now when I say versus, I'm not like saying like going at each other or anything, but I'm saying that clearly, you know, um, through through our society, it's a difference. And like growing up, I even understood like when I would see a African, I knew that he was different or he looked different from what I was normally used to seeing, around me growing up. I was mostly used to seeing, when I think about the so-called black person, the black African American like me and you. But like if I would see an African, I know that he was the same skin tone as me, maybe a little darker or lighter, whatever the case may be. But I know the face structures, or it was always something different within them that I could tell that he don't remind me of what I was typically would see growing up. Now I do understand that I hadn't seen everything, and so let let me say that I know I hadn't seen everything, but we're just speaking about how the what you can identify with, what you can identify with out here in society with your own two, with your very own two eyes, what you can identify with. Now, you know, um, even with that, I just want to like just talk about some conversations that have taken place, within blacks in America, even throughout the school system, where they try to tell us about the slavery thing, 400 years of slavery. Well, we understand that blacks been enslaved for longer than 400 years. We was enslaved by the Arabs, during the Atlantic slave trade before we came here, and just about everybody who had invaded the continent of Africa have enslaved us almost. So we can really go back to like about 1,500 years of slavery. To be exact, we can go back as that, to a number like that. But at the same time, we're realizing that it's a particular type of black peoples that was, you know, that was being enslaved. And this is kind of interesting because once I came across that knowledge, I had to really like sit back and think about it. And I had to do other research, and I started noticing a pattern. And right now we, the so-called Black African Americans, we was always of that particular set of people that kept getting captured or kept getting enslaved. So I don't know if it was a system that was set up to, was it something about a particular tribe of peoples that was the ones who was said that was gonna always be enslaved, or what? Because I'm understanding, well, not only me, but we understand that each time we look at slavery or seeing the people that's been enslaved, they always look like us, black after the so-called black African Americans. And I was thinking about, like even down to the Black Lives Matter. I said, well, when I look at the CNN news and social media, I notice I never see Africans getting beat. I never see Africans getting beat. Now, if you can go, you know, dig up a video just to prove a point, then that's pointless, because now you really prove my argument. Because something of this magnitude, if you got to go and dig and search for something that goes on right before your eyes, then that's kind of being petty. But at the same time, to each his own. To each his own. I also realize that when we think about the Koreans and the Asians and a lot of Hispanic brothers, about the conversation about how they always stick together but the blacks don't, well, that's not true. That is not true. You have plenty of Africans communities, and they stick together. These are things we seen with our own two eyes. They stick together. So what is it about the so-called black African American? Well, as we understand that, just through what we're seeing with our own two eyes, is are the ones who is getting beat and murdered by the cops. Now, it was a conversation that was surfing, that came up about whether America don't mess with other nationalities or those other particular people, because there's something, if they was to do something to those guys, then their country would come and defend them. Well, I don't know how much truth is in that, but it would be something that their country would try to put upon America to make them, stop doing whatever that they're doing. But at the same time, if America did that same or treated Africans like that, then those countries in the continent of Africa, they would also come and defend their people, or put some kind of sanctions on America, or put something in place to America, so they'll know that, yo, that's not gonna float. But nobody have stepped up to take up for us. Now, is it because we're not Africans? Because plenty of people are saying that the so-called Black America is not an African, and that, the land that we are from, we wouldn't consider Africans on that particular land. Now, that's a conversation that can go back and forth, and if you're a part of the country community, you've been hearing this conversation. This is not a new conversation whatsoever. This is a old conversation, and both sides then done, crazy research to back up these statements. So let's not nobody say whatever the white man trying to make you guys do, separate yourself from being who. No, no, can that bullshit, because if you're thinking like that, now you're thinking like the white man, because now you're thinking that you don't need to gain more knowledge, and anytime you're putting yourself in a position where you can't receive other knowledge, then that's when you're stuck, and that's when you're really falling into the trap of the white man. So, let's not make this so much about a white man, blue man, whatever kind of man. We're just dealing with what we're seeing with our own two eyes. We're dealing with that. I look at the LGBT community, or something like that, the gay and lesbian thing. I noticed that while we was dealing with Black Lives Matter, that particular bill passed through. That particular bill passed through while we was dealing with Black Lives Matter. Once again, the so-called Black America, we got left outside alone. Once again, we got left outside alone again. So nothing seemed like, according to law, is really just falling in our way. Nothing. Everything we are pushing for, we're not getting. We're not getting it. And I think that we gotta just go back and just look at the overall picture, man. I think we just gotta look at the world view on the so-called Black African American. You know, is they even looking at us as being Africans? You know, I don't think so, because I have seen too many interviews, I have seen too many shows, I have seen too many conversations where that particular conversation just keep coming up. And like I said, once again, it's a very, very, very old conversation. It was a conversation that was even coming up before blacks came into America, about these peoples wasn't considered Africans. Now I'm wondering, would that have something to do with why we just kept being forced into slavery, or everybody just kept enslaving us? You know, um, I mean, it's plenty of things, plenty of theories we can go under, or whatever the case may be. But I'm just talking about, what do we see right before our very eyes? I never see on TV Africans getting beat by white cops, Koreans getting beat by white cops, a few Hispanics, but no Asians. But we always seeing Black Americans getting beat by white cops, or getting killed. So, I don't know if that whole Black Lives Matter thing was a good move for her, because that could come back and bite us in the ass, like that NWCP thing. You know, let's put these guys on the up on the forefront just to get these other agendas and things passed. So I don't know. That's some things we may need to look at, family. But we just can kill some of these conversations by saying that blacks know how to stick together. Well, like I say once again, we do have Africans here in America who do have their own community and they do stick together. So who and how we're looked at as is we Africans. That's the bottom line to all this shit. Are we really Africans? Because some people say that we was already on this land way before the Native Indian. Actually, a Native Indian is a black man. First off, which we notice, we understand that because we have artifacts and things that have some of the same symbols that over in the motherland had, and so we know that that had to belong to us. But like I said, once again, family, this is the conversation that is really getting deeper and deeper by the day. Is the so-called Black African American really a African? And if so, then why is it the same so-called African American that look like us is the ones for at least the last 6 to 700 years through through being enslaved was the only ones that kept getting passed along, as captured slaves. And if that's the case, then why are we not considered prisoners of wars, POWs? So all this conversation, really need to take place on a larger scale, and it needs to be a shared conversation by us all. All right, family. I'm out. Peace and blessing, fam. One.